fast. And it's been a long year. It's been a long year and a really short year. It's like, okay, hear me out. I obviously I know that time's passed, right? Because I remember this time last year. Not really, not really. But I know it happened because I remember New Year's Eve, New Year's Eve last year, right? And that's so like it's happened, and I know that I've aged, so I know that that's happened as well. But I doesn't feel like enough has happened to warrant an entire fucking year. You know, it it doesn't feel like it. It just doesn't. It's like a lot has happened in the last like couple months, right? And then there's like nothing happening before that. Like it just feels like a lot's happened really close together, and then just nothing. Hello, Rose. It's going pretty well, I would say. I'm having a little bit of an existential crisis, but that's fine. I'm also slightly panicking because we're supposed to be doing a family thing, but I don't know when that family thing is. Like I don't know if that's in like an hour or 5 minutes. 5 minutes would be a little awkward. An hour I could do, you know? Because I thought it was gonna start before 7, and then I was like, okay, I'll just postpone this, you know? But but now here I am. But now here I am doing this, and if it's like, oh, 5 minutes, I guess I can just be like, can you give me a half an hour? But but also, also yeah, I do also love the existential crisis. I've broken into the like foot long bar of chocolate. I'm not sure how I'm gonna make it through this without dying. I don't. Not a thing that I know if I'm going to survive, which is something. But yes, I have decided for the last time you're gonna see me this year, which isn't saying much, but it's saying a bit. And we're just gonna do some Hexceed. Just some chill times. We're just gonna vibe. That's what we're gonna do. Yeah, the dog is to be okay. Grand. And my brother's friend has to leave, but who knows when that will happen? We've got at least 20 minutes, and then yeah, it'll be grand. It will be grand. I've I've just been kind of looking through all of the games on Steam because there's the sale currently, and I'm like, I should buy some because some of them are really cheap, but I don't know. I don't know because yeah, it's that thing of all the games I want to buy are um they're like multiplayer games, which you know um not filters. Pretty. What about Overwatch? I've played Overwatch once, one time. Oh my god, why is it always large? That is the what thing have I just broken? Okay, nothing too bad. I'll consider it. But I've played it once. Okay, then Overwatch 2. Do you perchance like Overwatch, Rose? Is it perchance a game you play on the regular? It will be. I didn't even play it in mine. I played it in a friend's house. I've had the same experience with Overwatch that I've had with Fortnite. Which is saying something. Not the same experience, but pretty similar ones, maybe. Oh my gosh. Wait, is that? Okay. It's been a while since I've played Hexceed. I've also... Okay, so fun fact, I am... in my house, I move around pretty quietly. Not all the time, but most of the time. And I decided that I've startled my mother too much. So I've found a couple bells, like from the chocolate bunnies. I've been like, okay, I'll just start like attaching these to myself so that I stop scaring my mother. Because it's like she genuinely jumps sometimes. Are you okay? Doing okay there? Need some help? But yeah, that's fun. Always a fun revelation. But yeah, I will be jingling intermittently. It was an incredible amount of effort to get them attached because, you know, I've got two hands and I was only using one hand. It is so hard to tie a knot with one hand because I just half knot it twice because that's the only knot I know how to do, right? I think I need to change that. Because it is so incredibly difficult to attach anything with one hand. It just is. Quite ridiculous, frankly. I think genuinely this is the one game I'm like good at. It's like, but to be fair, that's with comparison. I've seen one other person play this game. That was pretty funny, not gonna lie. It was quite entertaining. But then when you try to like compare yourself to people that are playing other games, most of those games a lot of other people are playing, like Minecraft. I'm over here with my half-dirt shack. And then it gets a little sad to compare yourselves to the people that are also playing the game. Because the people that are bad at like building or fighting make up for it in being really fucking funny. I'm kind of funny. I'm very... I don't know. I'm here for the vibes. being able to yell my problems at random strangers on the internet, that is a plus. That is, I have to say, this is great as, like, just a vent for minor inconveniences. Like, any major inconveniences, you don't... Not particularly the thing you talk about. But minor inconveniences, like your friends making 17 group chats with the exact same people, that's something that you can talk about here and be really frustrated. It's a sideways crown. Pretty fun. I made a crown at some point. Well, it's pretty bad. It's not made out of metal, it's made out of warbler, which is a type of plastic. I also actually have warm coffee for once because we ran out of the little sachets. Very, very distraught, I must say. I am actively distressed at that fact. I've realised that perchance I jump topics too quick. Because a lot of the people that I watch, right? They'll spend like a whole 5 minutes on one topic. I'm like, how do you manage that? How is that a thing you manage? Like, what? How do you... I don't know. Because, like, it's not a thing of I want to copy the people that I watch. But it is the case of, surely you should put out content that you're like, oh yes, I would watch this 100%. And I'm not saying I wouldn't watch this, but it would be more background noise than like, ooh, this is gripping. Look at all these hexagons. My hexagon tag is my pride and joy. We are not getting rid of it. It is still there, right? It is. People are confusing. I'd rather someone tell a story while going on many different spontaneous side quests. Hell yeah. Yeah, the hexagon tag is still there. Fucking fantastic. To be fair, some of those were YouTube videos, so they were probably, like, at least partially scripted and or severely edited. Okay, so I can forgive myself for that, right? That I can forgive myself for. Yeah, I'm still upset about the lantern pane shattering. I'm upset about that, and I decided after the fact that I was going to like ask my mum if there was anything that we could do to fix it, because mothers know everything, and if they don't know anything, not anything, they don't know everything, then you go to the grandmother, who definitely knows everything. And I was just talking to her in the kitchen about it, and my dad's in the other room, and he evidently overhears this because he's fucking nosy. Like, he'll complain about me talking quietly to my mum after he's just actively mocked me. So, you know, it's a nice mix, right? True, yes they do. And I was just talking to her about it and being like, yeah, I've evidently put a candle too close to the wall of it. and it's and I don't get to finish my sentence. I'm not given the space to finish the sentence. Because my dad, who doesn't know that we're talking about a lantern, is like, no, you can't get the burn mark off the wall. Then I'm just like, no, it exploded. And he just stands there being like, what the fuck do you mean the wall exploded? What do you mean about that? And I'm just reveling in this. Because this is what he gets for entering a conversation he knows nothing about. And I just wait, like, I don't answer him. Eventually my mum's like, no, it's a lantern. The glass is shattered. And I genuinely don't remember the rest of what happened. But God, those moments are all I need in life. Absolutely ruining people's days. It's great. It's fantastic. Because, like, and then he, like, walks away. And I'm fine with this. Like, he says something else that I don't remember, and then he walks away. And then I continue to talk to my mum about it, because he was of absolutely no help. He gave nothing to this conversation. He was less than useless. Right? And, yeah, there are no places around where I live, I don't think, that work with glass. I don't think they do anyway. I haven't particularly looked it up because it's like really close to New Year's and nobody's going to be open anyway. But there is a store down from my grandma's house that we know exists. And like, okay, if nothing else, we'll go here. The problem is she lives in a different country, and the next time we go over will either be in February or April. And, like, it functions fine. I just don't have to open the door anymore to put the tea lights in it, which is pretty fun. But I can't hang it from anything anymore, because if it swings, and then I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't want just a random fucking tea light to swing down from the heavens and set my room on fire. I did drop a match earlier on my desk, and nothing was damaged. It wasn't a very bright match, and I did pick it up. It was down for a couple of seconds though, like at least 5, because I was just kind of baffled. And there's just this match on my desk and it's just not doing anything, and then I'm just like, hell yeah, fire, pretty sweet. Like, sure, it's exploded my lantern, which I am pretty miffed about. For the time being, you use one of those butterfly lights. Battery tea. Sorry, I read butterfly. Butterfly tea. That would be really fun, though. Oh yeah, maybe. We definitely have some. I shall see if we can find any. But yeah, because you know my plan for this was to put it on the end of a stick, and like I broke my rollerblades, my last ones, within the last like month and a half. No, like a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks before, and one of the latches completely disattached. Like the bit that was screwed into the plastic just kind of ripped out, which was very concerning. And I still used them. Like it was a little awkward, but I did, right? Because that's what else are you gonna do? I now have working rollerblades again. A little weird. They're a lot better on bumpy ground. I don't know why, but they are. So I'm thinking for Halloween, I get a cloak. I get a stick that's bent, like me, and I attach the lantern to it, I put on the rollerblade, and I just go out. I just float down the road. And if you want a firefly, that could work, but I don't have butterfly. Yeah. Damn. Oh wait, more things should glow. More things should glow. I've decided. Because that's my decision. It's my decision and my decision only to make, right? Yeah, we'll figure it out. I was being like, oh, if we got, like, I guess copper tape, I could solder it together. We're probably not gonna go down that route. I do still have all the glass pieces, though. And they're in pretty big chunks. It shattered very nicely. Very kind. But yeah, probably not that. But it is still an option. When we were discussing where we could go to get it fixed, like there's a town that's like half an hour away that we know has a glass place, but we don't know if it does like this or if it's windows, which would be a little embarrassing. My window's fucked. I don't know. I don't think it's like sealed properly, because my room's always fucking thin. But yeah. And when we got onto the topic of the one on the main road near where my grandma lives, I just turned to my mom and I go, if we do bring it there to get it fixed, we cannot tell her. My grandma, she loves her grandkids. She loves us. Perhaps a little too much. I'm just gonna we're her only three, right? We're her only three grandkids. She only had one child, so we're her only three. I wish to contextualize this by saying she's maybe a little too happy to have us. I had in my bank account that I've had for a couple of years now, after like couple Christmases, couple birthdays, I had about €200 in it. That number doubled over Christmas. She loves us a little too much. If we tell her that I had a lantern and one of the panes in it shattered, and we bring it with us, she will give me probably 80 quid to get it fixed, and then I won't need all that 80 quid. And I'll be like, hi grandma, love you, thanks, this is the money that wasn't used back. And then she won't take it back. She won't. I can't use pounds on a day-to-day basis. I can't, it's not a thing. Then I'll look her in the eyes and be like, please grandma, just take it back. Just take it back, please. I can't use it anywhere else. And then she'll be like, no. And it's like, it was really nice when I was young and I was buying like ice creams. What the fuck am I meant to do with it now? Look at it, hold it in my hands and be like, yes, savings. I can't be responsible. You give me excess money, it is going into my caffeine addiction. I will come back from Scotland with 18 cans of Monster. Save it for the next time you go over. I've been doing that for my whole fucking life, Rose. It never stops. It doesn't. No. And it's like, it's not even that, because if she gave us the money and then let us like spend it on things, that would be fine. But the only times we go anywhere in Scotland are either into the little town that she lives in, or into Glasgow. via train, which she goes with us, in which she buys most of the things for us, so we don't even get to spend the money that she gives us. It's just sitting there. 18 cans of Monster though, it is very tempting. Just like, Tesco has a sale right now, and I've just gotten some money. Yeah, I don't live in Scotland. I don't live there. If I did live there, it'd be fucking great. But I don't. And sometimes when she gives us money, she'll convert it into euro, which is more useful, I will not lie. Like, it's fine either way. But the other problem comes when our other granddad, recently, his wife passed. Not recently. 5 years ago. But he's become a lot more, like, sociable. And, like, we get like, cards from him now. And that's delightful. Is, like, in the last card I got from him, he wrote down, like, granddad and then his name. He's becoming a different person. What is this? He's recently decided that he doesn't just have us three as grandchildren either. He has, like, what? He has 9 grandkids. Excluding the ones that we don't talk to. It could be 12. But we don't talk to the ones that, yeah, never met any of them in my life. He has also decided to start but he doesn't give us euro, so it's just in pounds. So currently, in Ireland, in the country that I can't use pounds in, I now have a surplus of pounds that I cannot use. What if I lose it? Also, I would like to say this isn't oh, no, I don't need the money. No, I do need the money, but what if I lose this? What if I lose it? Then I can't use it ever. This isn't a place of pretentiousness, this is a place of anxiety. This is a what the fuck do I do? It's so incredibly stressful. But yeah, so that said, I probably do need to find someone somewhere in Ireland to fix it. Because I brought up there's a locksmith kinda nearby, and I was like, do you think they would? They probably won't, was the consensus. They probably would not. So that's unfortunate, but alas. But yeah, I actually have warm coffee for once. Because, yeah, they ran out of sachets. So I had to actually put effort into this. Because, like, over summer, we got, like, a bunch of, like, cold coffee sachets, so you could put cold water in it, and just go. And that was nice, I will not lie. And we ran out of them recently. Unfortunately, we're also now running out of, freeze-dried coffee granules. So I might have to put, like, a lot of effort into it soon. Which is gonna be something. I went over to one of my friends' houses, just before Christmas, like 2 or 3 days before Christmas, because they were leaving for relatives, and this was gonna be one of the only times that they could see me over the holidays. I was like, hell yeah. And I went over to their house because why not? I didn't start in their house. They had to get like, oh, they were sent out on a shopping trip. Be like, yes, please get golden beets. As in the vegetable. Fun fact about golden beetroot. It looks the same to normal beetroot from the outside. Which was fun to find out. Very funny for me. But yeah, and I ended up in their house, and this friend knows that I like coffee, knows that I like coffee and also that I'm in their house enough for the fact that they have gotten me a mug in their house. I now have a mug in this person's house. I am slowly becoming one with their family. And I was just content to like just use what was left of the kettle and some coffee granules, and then their dad sees this. And their dad sees this. And they have a little fancy coffee thing, but I didn't really want to, like, I would have used it. But you know, I don't know, it just seems a little obnoxious to go into somebody's house and then be like, ah yes, this coffee thing is mine, without anybody being like, yeah, go ahead. And long story very short, this friend's parents commandeered the entire making process of my coffee. They're like, oh yeah, use this thing. Would you like some frothy milk on top of that? And I'm just stood in the corner baffled. We're like, what am I meant to do now? You've just stolen my coffee. What? What do you do when somebody takes your coffee, not even hostage, but just like starts making it for you after you were already about to start making it? What do you do? What are you supposed to do? Like, what's the polite thing to do? Because I just stood there awkwardly to the side holding a teaspoon. Because I was prepared to make the coffee, so I had a teaspoon in hand. What are you... And I asked my friend, me like, what do I do? They've just commandeered my coffee. And they respond with, yeah, they're a little bit of coffee snobs. And just go on with their day, like this is fine. What was it? Like, was I just meant to stand there? Is that what you do in that scenario? Because if it's like a disgust thing, being like, oh yeah, I'll make your coffee, like, how do you like it? That's fine. These people had no hesitation, no prior conversation. Just being like, oh yeah, give me your mug. Give me your mug. And then suddenly, I'm not making the coffee anymore. Suddenly it's still my coffee. I've had no input in this coffee though. But yeah, their fancy thing is the one with the little capsules, the little pods that you put in the machine, and then you push the top thing down, and then it starts making coffee. Right? This man, this like 40-year-old, takes I think what was equivalent to 3 espresso shots, and just starts putting, yeah, it was an espresso thing, just starts putting them in. And I'm like, okay, I know that you have I know that you drink coffee. Are you sure this is okay for me to consume, though? Like, I like my caffeine. I don't like having a heart attack in somebody else's home. There are lines that even I will not cross. It was something. It sure was something. I'll give him that. It was... Well, 3 espresso shots is still under the healthy limit? Okay. Yeah, you just kept piling them in there. It was just like, okay, first one's done, let's put another capsule in there. I think this all started because the friend mentioned that I drank coffee cold. Or that I had drank coffee cold. And I'm just there like, yes, I'm not too picky. And then I'm just confused as these people make a coffee. Not for themselves. They didn't even make coffee for themselves. What am I ranting about now? One of my friend's parents took over my coffee making. Yeah. It was an experience. It was really... they only thought at the end, as they were already pouring the fancy milk in, to be like, oh yeah, do you want some frothy milk in there? As they're still pouring it in. They're still pouring it in, and I'm just like, yeah, sure. In the corner, still with my spoon in hand. Just being like, yeah, sure, I'll take some, I'll have it, sure. As they ask me as they're still pouring it in. Like, what was I meant to say? No. What would they have done then? Poured the whole fucking coffee out? Oh, God. It was an experience. We'll leave it at that. It was something. It sure was something. I will say that, and I will say it with my chest. It was something. I still don't, like, this was like a week ago. I still don't know how I was supposed to react. Because, like, unsurprisingly, that's never happened before. Not a single time. I'm also pretty sure their parents think we're dating, which is a little awkward. I'm also pretty sure their siblings think we're dating. Also, half of my friend group thinks we're dating, or thought we were dating. I think we've cleared that bit up now. Yeah, so that's... To be fair, their parents think they're dating everybody. Are you dating? I don't think so. It's a good question to ask. I'm pretty sure we're not. Like 80%. At this point, it's... Oh, hello, Nightbot. You haven't been here in a while. Good enough. Yeah, it's like... If we are, I don't know of it. But that does add another layer of what the fuck to it, though. Like, okay. Imagine. You have 3 kids. You're in the kitchen, one of your children brings home somebody who you've at least insinuated that you think they're dating. It's actually cause number one of all rom-coms. Oh my god, it is. Oh god. I don't want to be part of a rom-com. But yeah, no. Your middle child brings in somebody that you've hinted to thinking that they're making out in corners together. And you hear that this child drinks their coffee cold sometimes. And then you decide to take over the coffee. What? How do you jump from, oh, this child takes coffee cold, to I will make the coffee? Well, I really don't want to be part of a rom-com, though. I don't want that for me. That's not an aim I have for life, you know? So yeah, it was an experience. We'll continue to go with that. For now, it was an experience. One of my siblings' partners came over. Not today, yesterday, I think. Wednesday. And I had got them this little thing because they had mentioned that they liked it. I was like, here, have this thing. They then, I'm really not sure if they already had this, or not, or if they just produced it from themselves. They've gifted me the Song of Achilles. With just a little note attached, be like, thanks for it was a bit of obsidian. Thanks for the obsidian. It's actually my favorite crystal rock thingy. And I was just like in my head, yes, I'm aware, because you mentioned it a couple months back, and it's been the only present idea I've ever had for you since. You can't really say that to somebody, right? It's also very odd, like, giving. We'll go with exchange, because they enter the house, and they enter the house. I walk downstairs, give them a little box, say Happy Christmas, walk away. 2 words exchanged. A whole 2. I walk away. I go back to my little cave of a room. Because at this point, that's all I'm doing with my life. Sorry, I'm so incredible. How did numbers work again? And then at some point I leave my room and I go back. I think this was one of the days that I was painting. And I come back and there's a book outside my room, and I was just like, oh, somebody's put a book down, and I walk past it. And I continue to walk past it for hours, being like, oh yeah, somebody still hasn't picked up their book. And then my brother is outside and is like, oh, have you seen the book that they left for you? I'm like, that's for me? Why? Why? So yeah, in this exchange of presents in which somebody got a piece of obsidian and somebody got a book, there were a whole 2 words exchanged. A whole 2. A grand total of 2 words. And that is the proudest I have ever been of myself. Like, hell yeah. Hell yeah. This is the best that I have ever done in a social situation. With 2 words. Also, I can get my driver's license. I've been able to get my driver's license for a while, but I'm actually I'd say the most common outfit to aggressively cost season 7 or 9. I don't actually watch that many rom-coms. Sorry for bumping you. Didn't mean. I just decided that I didn't like them after watching like 1 or 2, and just never watched them again. I do kinda. Fair enough. If you like rom-coms, you watch them. But yeah, I also still need to get my passport redone. It's a whole thing. I really like The Nanny and Will and Grace. I've heard of Will and Grace, I have not heard of The Nanny. I think. But yeah, it's like I could in wait, what, it's 12 weeks of driving lessons. 2.5 men occasionally. 2.5? That's concerning. Is that like involving a child or? Because that's a crime. Not even a fun crime. Like, what do you want to do with a child? You're Irish, fuck. You're Irish, you know what pedophilia is. Oh fuck. What was meant by that? Was it like an intersex person? I feel like that's kind of like a haha, you're not a full man. I feel like that's kind of rude. What is this bug on about now? Yeah. Well, I know what rom-coms are. But I do want to know what 2.5 men means. That is... Because, yeah, all I'm coming up with, genuinely, is pedophilia. Which, you know... I'll catch a case for that. And to be fair, that is my reaction to most people trying to talk to me. Mainly because I don't know how to people. Never very fun for either of us. I'm just sat there like, what the fuck is... what's being said? And then the other person is being like, why is there no reaction? Just none. Just fucking dead-faced. Oh no, the rom happens outside of the 2.5 men? Okay, so the 2.5 men is the comedy part. So it's not pedophilia. Okay. Yes, okay. Thank you, Iris. Clearing that up. I like how the immediate reaction was not to be like, no, it's not actually 2 men and a child getting together. No, just 2 straight men. I think they both have wives with kids and they live together. My god, they were roommates. I like how the immediate reaction wasn't to be like, no, not a crime. It was just to be like, oh fuck, you are Irish. Just an acknowledgement of my nationality. Yeah, think the half is a child living on the poster? On the living on the poster. What the fuck is happening? Give me a second. Gonna have my summary. The first 8 seasons of 2.5 Men shows Charlie Harper, a hedonistic jingle writer living in a beachfront Malibu abode, whose life is turned upside down when his brother Alan comes to live with him following a divorce, coupled with his nephew Jake visiting on the weekends. That is not what I would have guessed the plot to be, in the slightest. Mainly because you said they were like, wait, I should there are 2 men and a child on the poster for... Okay. We have great communication skills here. Fantastic ones, really. Only the best, actually. Nobody can out-communicate us. Right, so moving on. That's one way to change the subject. What other fun topics do I have? I have been gifted, 3 books of, about D&D for Christmas. One is the player's handbook, the monster manual, and then the dungeon master's guide. Right? And that would be great if any of my friends would ever follow through with a plan. Like, I'll read them, and I'll be like, God, I wish I could partake in this. I think one of my friends has mentioned playing D&D as a group for like every couple weeks for several months, and just never. And I'm always the one planning at least like 60% of things. 60% of things that actually happen anyway. I don't want to have to put together like a timetable for us to play D&D as a group. Because I know for a fact I'm gonna be forced to be the one keeping track of everything. I don't want to do that. For once in my life, I don't want to. Or at least, if anything has gone through, they've never talked to me about it. Maybe they just don't want to play D&D. Maybe I'm the problem. That would be a really sad way to figure out your friends don't like you that much. Sorry, I'm having... Because it's like almost the end of the year, I'll have like a myriad of minor, existential crises over the next couple of days. Over the next day and 28 hours. Over the next 28 hours, I need to have at least 28 more existential crises. How do you count again? Or not, I guess. 1, 2, 3. No, there was a thing that so in about October, when my September, October, when my friends had a very bad breakup with somebody, in which a little rundown in case you've forgotten the last. Oh, have I returned? Is my Wi-Fi dying? I think it might be. Yes, okay. So currently, don't know how to fix that. Oh, it's now at 2000. I wonder who's playing Hexceed right now. Technically me, when things start working again. Has my internet just that's obviously not just gone down, but it's obviously also not doing well, right? Hi. Have I returned? Can you hear me? Please. It's only been an hour. Not even been an hour. Only you? Only me? Really? That sure is something. But yeah, okay. Obviously, my Wi-Fi could not handle me talking about this horrible ex. I'm gonna continue talking about him anyway. But yeah, we found out that if they didn't get with the person that they were dating at the time of the shit show, they were gonna try and ask me out. And we think they had like a list of people, because somebody else was like, they're being a little odd. They sent this person love poems. So we're thinking, right? And then they got like oddly, like uncomfortably like sexual with somebody else. Not in like actual actions, but in like comments that they made, which was a little weird. I don't know where I was going with it. Where was I going? Oh yeah, they tried to befriend 13-year-olds. That's like a multiple year gap. That's like too many years. That is far too many years. Moral of the story, I hope they have a really shit 2023. I really hope they do. I also kind of wished that the person that they did end up going out with gave up on them. Is it still not fucking working? Has my phone just broken? Has my phone died? Because that's what I'm judging most things off of right now. That's what I'm judging it off of. Genuinely. So it might just be my phone dying. Where the... Is my phone dying? Please no. I don't want this. I want things to fucking work. I'm gonna close everything on my phone. We're gonna reopen the fucking thing. Yes. Oh, does it have to rain the cemetery? Fair enough. Is it? Wait, okay. Is it that Wi-Fi is dying? Or is it me? I don't know why it's raining at the cemetery. Probably because of the clouds, I would assume. I would assume, if anything, it would be the clouds. Okay, no, it's the Wi-Fi. Couldn't be a sunny day at the cemetery. Nah, fair. It's never a sunny day at the cemetery. Okay. Things I'm hoping they're working. There you go. Boom. I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't think I've ever known what I'm doing, to be fair. I don't really have a lot to do. Yeah, no, but it got to the point where even after that relationship, multiple people that were involved have stopped going anywhere near their place of work, which is, funnily enough, a supermarket pretty close to multiple people that were part of it. One of them being me. They showed up outside of my house on one of the last days before everybody cut contact with them. On the day that I cut contact with them, they were outside of my house, and I didn't know until afterwards. That was a really fun day. That was, I have to say, a frankly delightful day. I think only one of us was very smart during the whole thing, because there were like multiple people that were, okay, there was main group of about 3 people, and then there were about then there were a couple more people, maybe 6-ish, 5 or 6, that kind of knew what was happening but weren't involved, and then there was one person that was at the very edge. They were only at the very edge because immediately they blocked this person. They did not give a single shit what was happening. They had already had bad experiences with this person from the past couple months. They immediately blocked this person. That was the smartest person in our group. Genuinely, the most intelligent of us just immediately blocked. No, apparently they still, because there's somebody that me and a couple people that were involved with it know, that's still vaguely in contact. Like, they weren't really affected. They weren't really involved in it, and I don't actually know a lot about their current stuff. But every now and then we'll get fun little updates from this person. Apparently they are still villainizing somebody. Oh, even more fun. somebody else gets updates from just like their school, because they've told a couple people that they should not be like, they were the one that was like, oh yeah, they're talking to 13-year-olds, and they'd stopped the 13-year-olds from talking to them. And this person gets just little updates of very funny things. Apparently they're like, one, still villainizing the person that they were like, oh, you're to blame for this. They're still villainizing that person several months after the fact, which is, you know, a fun little piece of information. And even more fun than that. So our group is very not straight or cis. And one of the people as like, they can't really change their name because they're living with family, but they've kind of changed it. It can be taken as just a nickname of their longer name, right? And apparently this motherfucker was talking to somebody that the person with the could be taken as a nickname new name knew, and this person was just through school, so they had never been told that it was like, oh hi, you please use this name and pronouns for me. They'd never been told about that. They were never really close enough for that. And this person this school friend is talking about the friend, and this motherfucker, this actual piece of hardened shit, is like, no, you can't use that name for them, as in their birth name, and is, oh, you must use this name. And it's like, what the fuck do you mean, bro? You can't do that. One, you just outed somebody. Two, you traumatized us. Why are you still acting like we're your friends? Yeah, that was fun. It was genuinely fucking hilarious to hear about secondhand. Like, goddamn, the balls on this bitch to believe. I have also decided that I haven't seen them since. I have not seen them once. It is genuinely impressive because other people seem to be seeing them around. I'm just not. Maybe that's because I don't leave my house though. I have decided that if I ever see them again, I am either just going to pretend I never knew them. Like, if they come up to me, I'll be like, hi, who are you? I'll just pretend that I don't know them, which I feel would be fun, because they're definitely the type of person to be like, oh, but I'm blah, you know me. What are you on about? No, I don't. And then it would just be a really fun exchange, or I kick them in the crotch. It's one or the other. If we're in kind of a secluded place, maybe in a video game, I would hit them. But otherwise, I just feel like the other one is just a fun little thing, because they're the type of person as to where that would really annoy them. So I just feel like that would be really fun. Somebody else is just gonna ignore them, but I personally feel like that's just not the type of shit that I do, right? I'm go big or go home. And those are my two go bigs, and if I do neither, I'm going home. Crying, probably, because they will have tried to interact with me. I had a fucking nightmare. I was gonna say I had a dream with them in it, but really it was a fucking nightmare. I don't remember much of it, but I remember that we were all at a kind of like I would say party, but it was a lot more similar to like a fantasy kind of ball thing. And I was having a hell of a time sitting in a corner. Right? And for some reason I go outside and I see them, and then I go back in and they're just constantly in front of me. Like, I run a bit, they're there. I turn around, they're there. It was fucking terrifying. And then I woke up and was like, oh wait. I don't know how I didn't clock on that that wasn't a thing that happened. You know, one, that I would never go to one of those things. I might. Probably not. But, you know, if given the chance, I never even went to a fucking GA. Fun fact, a GA thing is somewhere where 13 and 14-year-olds go to fucking snog. It's basically a party that's put on once a month. Yeah, once a month. You would always know when it was coming up because, all of the girls would be fucking caked in fake tan. They would look like Oompa Loompas. It was fantastic. It smelled horrible, but it was fantastic. And it's called a GA because it's held in the GAA clubs. And one of my friends genuinely tried to convince me to go to one of these ones. I don't really know why. I don't know why they thought I, me, myself, the one that's shut in their room most of the time, would be likely to enjoy going to a party where there's upwards of 90 people, you have to buy a ticket, and you're forced to, one, watch people snog, two, possibly be propositioned for a snogging. You know, it's me thing. Until I never went to any of it. It's just, like, why would you want to? Apparently there's an entire wall where people just make out. It sounds like the most uncomfortable life experience ever. And I just, like, I went to a summer camp once, but this didn't happen the year out. Much rather sit in the corner of a room with nobody around than go there. Exactly. It's like, one, you're getting asphyxiated with the fumes of fake tan. Two, you're being forced to watch strangers that are, like, in your age just make out. Who wants to see that? Please, stop playing with each other's tonsils. It's a little weird. You're allowed to breathe. Yeah, I went to a summer camp once, and it wasn't during the time where I was there. It's a 3-week thing. There are technically two 3 weeks. You're allowed to go to one of them. And I went to the second session. In the first session, there is apparently, or was at some point, a tradition of people going around, and like, it was like a competition, because there were different, because it was a go there and stay there for 3 weeks for most people. There were exceptions, obviously. There were people that were able to get dropped in and out. Most of us were not able to get dropped in and out. Some of us weren't able to stay there. Because yeah, it cost more, and also some people had like certain things that could not be changed, that they just couldn't stay there for. But alas, and it was like a competition between the different like groups in the first session to see who could get like the most like kisses off of the other team, which was odd as far as I could tell. Also, a fun fact about the culture of this, it's multi-year running thing. Not because of COVID. Very sad about that. But one of the it's apparently it got to the point where on the first day you're brought into an auditorium and you're all sat down and you're supposed to do a kind of like icebreaker with a random group of people. I don't really remember how the groups were decided, but they were somehow. And there's like a rules thing that they have to read out to you. One of the things where you don't have to give each other hickeys, there are other ways of showing affection. That was genuinely one of the things. Another one of the things was to not put microwave popcorn in toasters, but that's because that started a fire, right? So I only got to go once because of, COVID. Hell yeah. It was great though. Lots of lovely people. Also assholes too, but you can't really get rid of them. There was one person who I think was like a fascist, unfortunately. Yeah. I think they were a fascist, genuinely. Because they kept on defending, like, they were either fascist or communist, but like not even like one of the nice communists, right? Because some people that are like, hell yeah, communism, they're pretty decent people. This one, I think they were a fascist. Which it's a bold statement to say, right? But hear me out. I had one conversation with this person. And it was just the same like 3 lines over and over again, phrased differently. It was so I am almost certain they were genuinely scary to be around because they were so loud, and some loud is good loud. Some loud is funny loud. This was not funny loud. This was I'm shitting myself, please leave me the fuck alone loud. Please, I'm about to start sobbing, leave me alone. I was 13, 14 when I went there. And obviously I had and still do have immense anxiety. This was when I didn't really know how to cope with it, right? And one of the days this was where I did the criminology course. We were doing there were upwards of 20 people in our group. And there were 2 classes, which was pretty impressive. And one day we were doing a debate on whether the death penalty. Damn, I had 2 very similar experiences in the same year and did not realize until now. Okay, we'll start with this one. We were doing a debate about whether the death penalty should be a thing, right? And like it got to the point where everyone was like, people were like taking turns, but they were like shouting at each other, right? And I put my hand up and I was like, this is my point, and it's like we can't really decide, but and I just couldn't get the words out, right? And then somebody just they meant no harm by it. none at all. They're lovely people. But they were just really into this debate. And I'm really bad with people, like, shouting in my direction when I think it's aimed at me. And I just break down. I just have a fucking breakdown to the point where the TA has to take me out of the room and sit with me until after it's over. I'm not sure if it was a breakdown or like a panic attack. It was one of the two. But yeah, even better, this was the first time that somebody had been concerned for me during one of these. One, the TA was a delight. Two, people texted me to ask if I was okay. That was the first time that had ever happened. That's a little sad, but it's fine. And then I've just realised, I think it was in my first year of school, or my second, so once again, 13 or 14. And it was during another debate, but it was actually in school. It was the trolley problem. We were in English. And I once again put my hand up and was like, yeah, but either way you're going to be blamed for it. And and obviously it wasn't just that. I went into it and I just kind of started quietly crying to myself while saying this. And I don't know why. But those are two very similar experiences. But only in one did anybody notice or care. So that's an eye-opener. To be fair, that teacher was a fucking asshole. That teacher was a horrible person. That teacher made people cry on the regular, on purpose. That teacher was something. Most English teachers are like, they're okay. Some of them are fantastic, some of them are okay, some of them are absolute fucking dickheads, right? Some of them are like, children are the bane of this earth. I agree with them on some parts. But it's like, come on, you chose to be a teacher. You can leave. You're able to leave. We're not keeping you here. Why are you taking out your anger issues on some 13-year-olds? Gotta love them. You gotta love them. Because if you don't, then they'll try and take out your spleen. We also had I don't think our class was helping at all, because one day we were going through a thing. I do think we were 13 at the time. And it was another one of the moral questions, right? It was, yeah, I think it was one of our first classes, like our second or third with her. And it was like, I don't remember the story that much that we were being told to debate about, but at some point in it, it mentioned the word several, right? Just the word several. And it took a good 40 minutes for our teacher to explain at least 80 times to the class, to each person individually, that several does not mean 7. They are different fucking things. That was a great class, I must say. He did also try to take one of my limbs from me because I was sitting sideways in a chair to be able to better see the board. He was the one that put me there. I didn't choose to be there. She put me there. And just because I want to be able to see the board, you're giving out to me? Sorry, miss. I have many problems with her. I don't have her anymore, though. I'm fucking delighted about. I would cry if I still had her. Somebody did, a 60-year fucking went into the principal and vice's office and genuinely broke down sobbing. Desperate to not have this teacher anymore. And you know what? That's saying something. It was either yeah, no, it was for English. It was either for English or maths, and I'm pretty sure it was for English. But yeah, that says something, you know? That really says something. So yeah, this teacher's, as you could tell, fantastic. My dog got a haircut today, which I think is unreasonable because it's only going to get colder. It's only going to get colder. Like, it's not even February yet. March is notoriously the coldest month of the year, right? March and November. Like, December, January, February, they're okay. It's like, November's really cold, then it jumps up like 5 degrees for December, and then it slowly works its way back down into colder than November for March. I fully believe that March is the bane of this earth. March is a horrible month, I hate it. It shouldn't be allowed to be that cold when it's officially spring at that point. The first month of spring, it should not be that cold. There should be like 4 months of fucking winter. Sorry. Could only think of December. I was like, no, there shouldn't be 4 months of December. That would be unreasonable, right? Sorry, I've lost all thoughts. Oh, I'm also pretty sure that my first Irish teacher in secondary school tried to emotionally manipulate me. He kept on being like, oh, you'll do this thing for me, won't you? It was never anything that was like really out of reason. But it was like, oh, you'll be part of this thing for me, right? Like, I really don't want to. Don't make me, please. Like, we didn't even get anything for it. It was like a fucking St. Bridget thing. God. This was also at the fun point of time where it was like a weekend where I had just figured out that all the people that shared a primary school with me no longer wanted to associate with me in any way, shape, or form. Even the person that had been like pretty much one of my best friends for the past year, that's fine though. One of them I can understand. I was kind of a douchebag though. One of them I cannot. But okay. I guess I'm fucking better for it. Apparently she was a piece of shit. Delightful. I don't even know when I met her. I know it was in school, right? But I don't know when. I have found out that most of the friends I still currently have are the ones that have accepted the fact that I am a douchebag. Like, I will just unwarrantedly insult people constantly. pretty sure they know that I only mean it half the time. But I do think that one person is like, hell yeah, this is evidently how you communicate with this person. And has started to, like, almost do the same thing back. But they're not good at it because it's just genuine insults. There's, like, no pulling it back. There's no funny laugh at the end. There's, like, if you say, like, a kind of backhanded compliment and the other person is just looking at you dead-faced with no reaction, just kind of staring at you, not laughing along, just staring at you, being like, why the fuck did you just say that? Generally, you've overstepped a little bit. A point where this person did that was when they called me a Nazi. And was just like, yeah, this is fine. That's a fine thing to call somebody. Was also the person that compared me to a homeless skag. But yeah, yeah. Damn. I think it was skag. That was a fun day. It wasn't on the same day. You know, it's like, I kind of want to talk to you less. I can count, I promise. But yeah, that's fun. That's what somebody may call delightful. Not me. Somebody though. Somebody out there would refer to that as a delight. I did my accounting homework the other day, a Wednesday, I think. That was delightful. I didn't finish it all. I finished all but like the very end of a question because I've forgotten what balance sheets look like. Yeah, that's not the best thing. I left the copy that I for accounting in school, so I can't even like look back at it and be like, oh, nice. Nah, it's just like, I don't remember what that looks like. One of my friends has also suggested. One of my friends that I do not see that much, one of the two people that I still talk to from primary, has decided that we should get together for little study sessions every now and again. And I might genuinely take them up on it. But here's the fun thing, I still don't really know how to study, which is not a good thing at this point in my schooling. I feel like there should be genuinely a class that is taught on it. Being like, yeah, these are a bunch of different methods that you can do. Or even just like, this is how you study for this. Because I know how to study for history. But that doesn't really fucking help when you don't take history, does it? You know, that's kind of an integral part. Being able to study for a subject is taking it. Right? But you'd think... I did put history down. It was one of my 5 choices. You'd just didn't give it to me. They didn't give me history or chemistry. Instead, they skipped past both of them and gave me accounting. Which I'm not doing too shoddy in, to be fair. That's what I can read. Count, I promise. I think I say that too much. I feel like someday somebody's gonna be like, they can't read. They can. It's not a thing that they can do. But I promise. Also decided I say I've started. I'm trying vaguely to post more on TikTok as well. I've posted a whole one thing in the past several months. I will say that's because my video edit Blender still isn't working properly. It's still not working properly. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know. I don't think I'll ever know how to fix it. Every now and then I have the idea of being like, oh yeah, I should do a mental health thing, like stream at some point. And then I also decide, no, I probably shouldn't, because I still live with my parents. I don't want to hear them about the fact that I'm depressed, because they don't. Because we don't talk about Bruno. My older brother, right? Today, the man's 60 years older than me. He came up to half a decade and some. Came up to me today because he's visiting for Christmas and New Year's. I am currently wearing a jumper that one of my friends got for me. His lover. It's a little too big, but I do not mind. I don't think I can wear it out, but it's very comfortable. It does get bobbly very easily. Actually, a top blender for a little bit. Iris, I have a question for you. Iris, I have a question. I have a question, please. 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 Okay. What? Okay. Okay. If one goes into video editing in Blender, thank you. And okay, please. Yeah, by the way, you don't actually have to answer. I'm just. Why did it not open? There we go. Okay. I'm gonna. Okay, we're leaving on the the very peppy music in the background. Let me go over here and let me change this. I hope there's no important information here. is, it's not. Just down there? Okay. Can't see it. Properties. Oh, wait. No, I haven't. Okay. Okay, this is gonna take me a minute. Okay, give me a minute. Give me a minute. Sorry that you're just looking at a black screen. I do not. That must be so incredibly boring. I'm not gonna be any more entertaining for a minute, though. Why is it not? What? Fuck? What? Okay. We can, this is fine. Play capture. This is, okay. Here we are. This is what I'm working with, okay? Did I actually set it up after I reinstall it? I don't know. Output properties. Yeah, okay. Okay. Okay, it's fucking. Is it? There you go. Why the fuck does it never output as a video? I don't know why. I've tried everything. It just outputs any video as a single frame. It worked for a little bit and then it stopped working, and then I waited a month and it started working again, and then it immediately stopped working. And I don't know why. And I'm scared. Have you... I swear. Fuck. I can go over there. No, wait. Go over there. Go over there. That is a video. Oh my god, that. Okay. Can see the edge of my files. Okay. I wish to go to there, please. Okay, what if I just change where it's saving? Then I can try it later. It's fine. Oh my, what the fuck? What the fuck is that? This is fine. We'll just save you to like videos. There we go. I'll deal with it later. Don't save. I don't care for you. Why? Okay. Thank you, Iris. It might work. I hope it works. Back to me not having a breakdown over Blender. I'm not actually sure that ever happened. Kind of always having a breakdown over Blender. I swear I can. Swear. Okay. There are like 5 settings you have to do. Oh, yeah. I'll look it up and cry later. Because it worked at some point, and I don't know what changed. You know? Because, like, it was all fine and dandy, and then things just stopped working. I'm guessing it updated, and I didn't set the settings properly. Yeah, that's probably what happened. Yeah, at some point I spent like 40 minutes subtitling and resubtitling like a 30-second clip just for it to not export properly. I genuinely had a breakdown. I was on call with somebody at the time. It sure was something. It was also at 2 a.m. That might have been part of the reason that I had a breakdown. I feel like subtitling at 2 a.m. isn't the best thing. It's like one of those like older YouTube videos formatting, being like, oh my god, I subtitled at 3 a.m. and this is who and what. Watch and find out what happened. I called Freddie Mercury at 3 a.m. and he picked up. Also, fun fact, the parents that have basically commandeered the creating of my coffee also asked me if I was going back to Scotland for the holidays. I'm not sure when I mentioned where my grandparents lived, but that was very awkward to explain that no, because my parents don't like the ferries and one day I'm very tempted because their dad has quite a thick accent. Not to the point of being unintelligible, but to the point where I'm like, is that word or the other word? And I am so tempted one day to just go over and just whip out my 17 different accents that I've mixed together to make a horrible accent. I keep on doing the oh my gosh thing every now and again. I've now confused also my mother. Mainly because she thought that I'd said something to do with water instead of oh my gosh. But that is just the accent I now default to for saying oh my gosh. Don't know why. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say oh my gosh like that. I don't think it's something I've stole from. This might be the first original phrase that I have. And that's genuinely quite impressive. Because I think most of the other things I repeat, I've heard somebody else say, you know? No, it's not an original. Not a Netflix original, right? Or it could be from a Netflix original. No, it's one or the other, and they're both bad options. Great at this game, in moderation. But yeah, an update on my sister. How else are you supposed to generate content if not steal it? I genuinely, I do think that's how you're supposed to generate content. It's like it's just robbing other people. If you do it bigger, better, and louder, then people will think that you came up with it, right? Like, somebody'll get annoyed, but gives a shite. That's me, the person that's done these, who I like that part, will steal exactly. Coming from the person who doesn't really do much, rob others. Oh, it's just not me, because I'm not sure what exactly you'd get from robbing me. But yeah. Surprised nobody's knocked on my door yet. Normally there's somebody who's like, hi. I am used. If not my mother being like, hi. Make it. Or do you a shower? That's always. Oh my god! It was a face. Look at it. It's a face. The receding hairline. Somebody that I started talking to at like start of this school year ish. At some point within like a month and a half, like, hi, could I try out this name? For like the group. Could I try out this name? And people were like, yeah, sure. Okay. Is there anywhere specific you'd like us to? They were like, yeah, just like large. Generally, or maybe not in anywhere public. And just every now and again, when it's just like our group, there's just like 3 people when this person will like misgender themselves. They'll just go, no. They'll just look at them so confused, being like, what do you mean by no? Like, I've also started mocking them for like getting bald. Right. There's genuinely somebody in my group that's already like, they have a bald spot on the back of their head. They're younger than me and they have a bald spot. It's fucking hilarious. Because I get to mock them for this. And it's like, they're taller than most people in our group. Not by a whole ton, but by a bit. And they're just a bit taller. So nobody ever sees this bald spot. So, So every now and then I'll just like make a joke about it, and it's fucking hilarious. I've also been slowly unpacking their trauma for them. It's great. I'm no longer the good therapist friend. I am the aggressive therapist friend. I will forcefully unpack your trauma for you. There's me and one other person in the group. We have successfully identified almost all of their trauma. I have recently been labeled not recently, like a month and a half ago. This person who I met in September has decided that I just know all of their trauma. I just know it all. And that every now and then I just pick and choose, prod at it with a stick, like an animal. I find very funny because it is what I do. But I also got surprised. You mentioned the fact that one specific person in the group wasn't mentally okay, and they were like, what? Because this person's they've successfully identified almost all trauma. Terrible ad. God, no, genuinely though. It's pretty entertaining. Like, of course it's very, you have to be like very careful about it, right? Because you don't want to actually cause somebody to have a breakdown in public. You just kind of want to get them to start thinking about it, you know? Because most people don't tend to, maybe not most people, but this person in particular is like, they're aware that they're pretty bad, but they don't like thinking about it. So therefore, they're like, if you don't recognize it or think about it, one day you're just gonna break, right? So we're doing the fun thing of prodding at it just enough to where they'll think about it and they'll like contemplate it and be like a little down in the dumps for a while, but not to the point where they'll have a full-on breakdown, right? It's very calculated. We've also found out that they're incredibly touch-starved, to the point where, like a dog, can, like, start scratching their head, or, like, messing with their hair, or, like, give them a hug, and they'll just melt. I'm scared. Don't worry. I don't know you. I can't do that to you, even if I wanted to, which, to be frank, I don't want to. But it's kind of like a safety measure to make sure that like they are aware of these things that are incredibly harmful that they're doing. Like, if they continue to do those things, we can't do shit. But if they maybe know why, might not to do those things so much, you know? It's a very systematic thing. It doesn't help that they cannot keep their mouth shut and they basically told half of it to us themselves, right? It's a lot more connecting the dots of why things happen rather than what caused things to happen, you know? It's I'm not gonna say it's fun, but I am gonna say it's fun. It's fun in a not so fun way. was a fun in a way that I don't have any other words to actually describe it. Yeah. Yeah, one of us, the two of us that systematically prodded this person would be like, hi, look at this thing, contemplate it for a bit. They can recognize some of it because they've been like, aha, I recognize this from looking in the mirror. For me, it's some of that. For the other bit, it's also, I've been the therapist friend for too long, and also been through it to not recognize it. Which isn't, that's not really something you want to be hearing from a child, but it is something that you are hearing from a child. I have been on the internet for far too long, and have had to deal with far too many very, very sad people to not recognize these things. So yeah, I have a mirror. I know what's in it. Anyway, my dog, right? Got a haircut, and because you can't. She doesn't like being washed. We do it every now and then, when particularly when she like needs one, or like if it's been really, really rainy or really muddy, or it's been snowing, right? But we don't tend to just put them upon her, because she'd fucking hate us if we did that. And so when she gets her haircut, we can't just put her in like the bath and rough to get rid of all the bits of hair. We send her out the back, just run around for a bit, so that she's got slightly less bits of fur attached to herself. That looks like a car logo. Not sure. It is the last day of 2022 tomorrow. Okay, so the one time that I've left the house since Christmas. Thank fuck. Thank fuck. Fair. And oh yeah. Not the reaction I was expecting it. Has 2022 wronged you? That's it. And then the next question, how do you know that 2023 isn't gonna... So far, I've not seen anybody say that 2022 is gonna be their year. 2023 is gonna be their year. Because we all know it's not. We're all aware it's gonna, like, if you put that energy out there, the universe is gonna be like, oh ho ho, is it? Is it, bitch? Yes, who didn't 2022 wrong? Fair enough. Will be either the same or worse. These just don't get better. Well, okay, hear me out. Hear me out. We get to leave our house. Get to go. We get to get out of the toxic environment. You get to be able to lock your bedroom door soon. I don't think you should live on your own, though. I don't genuinely. Okay. Rose goes to my school. I don't think anybody in our group should live alone. I don't think that will end well. I just don't think it will. No, I don't. The locks were removed because... Yeah, but soon, if you leave the house... It's only like, what, another... Okay, to be fair, that... I'm not gonna say it out loud because, yeah. And that is... I'll be very safe living on my own. Now... No, I might be wrong, but I do not trust that one fucking bit. I do not trust that statement in the slightest. That statement, I have a feeling, is sarcasm. Maybe. I don't trust myself, but I trust the statement. Okay, you'd be able to function living on your own, right? Definitely. Don't doubt that for a second. I'm not sure if you'd continue to, you know, breathe, though. Yeah. That's the main thing. I don't think you'd be bothered, quite frankly. Yeah, the one time that I've left my house since Christmas, I got a fidget cube. It is so great. I love it. Fantastic. Hell yeah. Or at least that year won't be identical to the last. Hell yeah. I hope all goes well. I hope you don't fucking die. I would be sad. That would be unfortunate on myself. Somehow I doubt that's the least of your problem. I hope you can get some form of progress. I don't know. Yeah, me too. Yeah. I hope you can also find somewhere to live. I hope the housing crisis isn't as bad as where you're moving to. To be fair, the housing crisis seems to be pretty shit everywhere. The housing crisis in Ireland is only getting worse. And that's saying something, you know? That's saying something. Like, there are derelict houses fucking everywhere. And landlords are just increasing rent all the time. They're just not stopping. There's no cap on it. Housing prices starting to drop in the Netherlands? Hell yeah! Somewhere's getting a tad better. God, I found out that in the whole of the EU, there are 2 photography courses that are taught in English outside of Ireland and Scotland. Outside of Ireland and the UK. Technically not all the ones in there in Scotland. And they're both in the Netherlands. Both of them. Only 2, and both of those are in the Netherlands. The only 2 taught, once again, in English. Or at least I'm assuming they're the only ones taught in English. But yeah. I'm assuming HKU is an acronym. But I'm not that intelligent. So I do not understand. Just a little odd coincidence. the Netherlands is now my backup of a backup plan. No, never mind, that one's Dutch. Yeah, I don't know. It's on like Unicast. Not Unicast. Unicast is the other one. Oh shit. Is it Unicast? No, Unicast is. Yeah, okay. That's not. It's on Here's a freaking portal. Oh my god, I can send an inquiry to my school. Why you shit? What the No, sorry, what the fuck was that? What the Oh my god, that's from literally 3 years ago. They have a picture up on my school website from 3 years ago. Gallery, board management policy. Through that. Way to pay? No, it's not gonna be through way to pay. Why the fuck would it be through way to pay? That's quite fucking bleak, isn't it? I don't know. It's second. It was University of Groningen, I think. And what was it? A really fancy sounding one. I don't know. Oh, that's fun. That turned off. For no good fucking reason. Oh my. Open. Please just work. Please. Fun fact is I know I saved it, but I don't know where I saved it, which is not the most helpful of things, right? Not the most helpful of things. Because it's like, oh, I know it's somewhere, it's just somewhere. No, that is empty. Bachelor's degree? I think so. Where the fuck is this? Is my quite important question. Is it that one? No. Also no. Was it? It was Unicast with an E on the front. Okay. Give me a second, I shall find them. Royal Academy. I was wrong. Royal Academy of Art, and Willem de Kooning. I have butchered that, I apologize. Yeah, those two. Oh my god, 2 more have appeared. There's one in Italy that's 8 grand, and there's one in Paris which is 25 grand. Okay. So the ones in the Netherlands are the only reasonable ones. They are 2,300, 2,300. Not including actually living somewhere. But hey, it's better than 25 grand. I don't see how they get anybody to study in Paris. It's like, who has that fucking money on hand? Like, even if that's for every single year, that's a lot. That's a lot of money. That is excess. Like, if that's for 4 years, that's still a lot of money. And I don't think it's for all 4 years. I, in fact, doubt it. I don't know. I have so many plans with backup plans upon backup plans. It's actually quite impressive. I don't think I've ever planned for anything more in my life. Like, several plans. Most of them do include me having like 7 sources of income just to be able to exist. And like, yeah. Okay, that's not one I know. Fair enough. I do not expect you to know every single university in your country. That would be a little excessive. Like, how many? I can't spell 55. That's a little excessive. I do know every research and applied uni. There are 4. Yeah, okay, in comparison, I know almost all of the ones in Ireland, and there are 7. Well, no, there are technically 9 if you include Northern Ireland, but yeah. National University, UCD, University of Galway, University of Cork. Later, goddamn. That's not including the... What are they? Not familiar with the art and fair. That is not the state ID. Yeah, that was not included. The recently coalitioned IT school. But, there are 4, I think? 3 or 4. I think there are 4. Wait. There's TUD, there's, Atlantic Coast. You know. Trinity, DCU, UCD, University of Galway, National College of Ireland, Maynooth. Yeah, technically. PUD, University of Cork. That's the Munster MTU. Technical University of the Shannon. Yeah. Fun fact, recently all of the not all of them, but almost all of the IT universities like merged so that they could offer more things, given more like grants. But they all have like 17 different like places, like what are they called? What are they called? Campuses. Because they didn't get rid of any of the campuses from just the IT colleges. They just kept them all and were like, yeah, this campus will provide these things. This one will provide these things. And the other three will provide something or other, and that's for sure. Fuck. Also fun looking at universities and you're like, I know I'm not going to this one. Why? Because it's a lot of money. My dad keeps on saying that money should not be the first thing that like knocks off a university. We can just get a loan. Yeah, because I want to be in debt for the rest of my life. Unless higher education is convoluted. Wait, convoluted how? Because okay, if it's in like the actual course structure, then I cannot give any insight. If it, like, because I know the CAO thing is also very convoluted. It's, yeah. The fucking UCAS points aren't as bad. As bad, I say. I don't think anything's as bad as CO points. Fair. Categorization. Oh no, there's one. I think yeah, it's basically the same everywhere. There are 3 universities in slightly northern Scotland, right? I think Robert Gordon is the main one that I remember the name of. And I was looking at the photography courses. All of them, that is the only one that does a level 7 photography course. And it requires you to have done a level 6 course in photography in either Robert Gordon or one of its associated universities. It's like, goddamn, just say you want more money and be done with it. It's a requirement. Which is, yeah. I have a kind of vague idea. Not really. It's a very vague idea. It is so incredibly vague. It's barely considered an idea, actually. Yep, it's something. It is something. That's That's about all it is. I think that for today, that shall be it. Thank you for being here, whether you've been here for 5 minutes, 3 minutes, or 2.5 hours, which means so fucking much to me. Thank you for being here, whether you've been here for a day, a week, a year, more than that. Genuinely, thank you. I don't know what's gonna be in store for 2023, but I hope that it's not shit. I hope that it's not complete and utter shite, you know? I hope that it's at least somewhat okay. Yes. But yeah, I do this Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays at 7 p.m. GMT. Next time you see me will be next year. I will have not changed at all. I might be a little more existential, because I will have definitely broken down at least twice over the weekend. Don't you worry. I hope if you're celebrating New Year's that it's fucking fantastic and you get hammered. Have a good 2022. You too. Yeah. I hope to see you next year. Have a lovely weekend. Whatever you're doing. If you're getting drunk, if you're staying sober, if you're protecting your animals from the fireworks that are bound to go off. I hope that it goes well, and I hope that next year is better than the one that we've just had. Wish I could get hammered. Fucking course you do. Well, you know where you have alcohol in your house. I know you do. Don't lie to me. Unless somebody's drank it all. But yeah. Have a lovely end of your year. I hope that the next one I can provide just as much entertainment as I have for the last one. I do. But yeah, once again, thank you for being here. And yeah, don't you worry, I'll still be here. Bye bye. Bye. See you next year. Hope we survive.